We are back on the Salty Runback coverage of the Collegiate 2024 Championship. Round of 16, our first match of the day has not disappointed, Quacks. But for all of those Western Mustangs fans, they are on the brink of elimination, the brink of what could potentially be the final run for four-year Captain Loyal. Just so many big storylines at stake here, so much involved in potentially a last game.
For sure. And I mean, both teams have showed a lot of heart in both of their wins, right? In the case of Northwood University, they obviously have one more win over UWO. So I think really what it comes down to is Western Mustangs need to adapt to the bot lane, right? We've seen Enthralled 2 games in a row. He has absolutely torn up the rift on that Varus. And we saw it banned in game number 1, but have not seen it banned since then. So I definitely think UWO would be wise to ban that one out here in game number 4 to not let Enthralled get his most comfortable champion and just continue to play around your strengths, right? You have Lynx. He is very much capable of carrying. That's what he did in game number 1 on the Callista. Give Mira something they're comfortable with as well, right? Mira had a great game on Aurelion Sol. So I think you need to go back to your roots, go back to what worked. If that involves going back to lane swapping, then so be it. Because I think that game 1 chaos was really where Western Mustangs made a thriving surge in game 1.
Yeah, and on the flip side, if you want to break up this bottom lane, maybe just ban Tom Kench. I know it's not a great ban in the scheme of things, but Clyde has saved just numerous members of Northwood in these fights. How many times did he ult Enthralled away from a Dr. Calculus running at him? How many times did he save Reppy, RBM in those fights across both of those games? So I think the big statement here, Quacks, from both of us is gotta just find a way to disrupt this bottom lane. And it was a big point that we talked about, this matchup, Enthralled versus Lynx. And in game 1, we saw Lynx in classic fashion on that Callista, just no fear, running down Northwood in that game. But since then, you talked about how raw of a talent Enthralled is. I mean, those mechanical prowess really showed out across these last 2.
And I love to see Enthralled surrounded by the teammates that he's surrounded by. You have Izo, RBM, and Clyde, who have been in the scene for a long, long time. You have these really storied veterans being able to sort of prop Enthralled up on a pedestal here in this series. And to me, that is amazing to see, right? You have the veterans helping out the newer talent. So I'm really looking forward to them, playing that sort of style that they did in game number 2, in game number 3. I'm curious to see if we'll see RBM on another signature carry champion like the Kindred, because I kind of feel like you have to sacrifice one for the other if you want the Kindred up or if you want the Varus up. Because if you ban both, then you leave a lot of room for some of those bigger, more meta picks to be up and available for the side of Northwood University.
Couldn't agree more, Quacks. We are into our game 4 draft. It's another game where the losing side wants blue side, so nobody has opted to pick red just yet. What does that B1 pick look like for Western Mustangs? Looks like so far they're continuing just like their last set of bans. Nico and Kindred were the first 2 taken away in response to their first loss of the series.
For sure, and it's probably going to be followed up by Skarner, and then maybe we'll see a Galio ban come out from the side of UWO. Yup, there it is. That gets dropped. And now the question becomes, what do Northwood want to place in this last ban? They could ban away the Tom Kench potentially. I feel like these sort of savior supports have been really high priority for both sides. Tom Kench really being able to bail out the more immobile AD carries that both Lynx and Enthralled have been playing throughout these 4 games, 3 games, 4 games, whatever. As it's actually going to be a first pick Varus here, as a Lynx is going to be the one to pilot that one.
Geez, these drafts are now flipped from last time, right? It was the B1 to Leah from Western, and it was responded to by the Varus. We've now swapped it so that the Varus is now in the hands of Lynx. Senna locked in here for Northwood. Now, that is very critical because from what we've seen out of the lane swap meta, farming Senna is really highly prioritized by a lot of those teams because Senna can lane with either the support or the top lane in that lane swap. So I'm curious if the Timberwolves actually want to wager their own lane swap in this game with the Senna locked in.
For sure. I think that a lane swap is certainly possible, but that's going to be a LeBlanc locked in here for Mira. So I'm curious to see if maybe we'll see a jungler drafted here by Krakedon that can make use of the chain, make use of the amount of lockdown drafted so far by Western. Something like a Lee Sin, maybe a Jarvan or a Xin Zhao. These champions that can really get their combos off when an enemy is locked down and willing to be hit. Or not willing to be hit, but forced to be hit by all of those abilities. And instead, both teams are actually going to draft a little bit differently than we've seen them in these recent games and go for the supports. Often we've seen the supports happen in the second phase of the drafts, but they're just picking up the Alistar and the Nautilus respectively.
Yeah, so Clyde goes back to the Nautilus, had that in game 1. It's the same supports from game number 1. Nautilus for Clyde, Loyal is back on the Alistar. Not a very common bottom lane like you mentioned there. All jungle bans with a bit of spice for Izo's Maokai is actually targeted here. The Volibear banned away as well. Interesting, as that's a pick of Izo. But it's going back. You talked about letting some of those meta picks be open and available. We've been seeing a lot of Rek'Sai top, and that's what Izo's going to go for. Don't have him playing a game of Rek'Sai top so far in Collegiate, if that is going to the top side.
I feel like it could very well go to RBM as well, because we've seen Rek'Sai top take a hit in recent patches in terms of being meta. It still very much is, incredibly strong. But speaking of incredibly strong, you were talking last game about Dr. Calculus's Aatrox and backs against the wall. They are going to pick that one up, followed by the Viego. So a really big damage snowball comp coming out here for UWO. It's going to rely on a lot of big picks in the early game and just a lot of extended skirmishing. So this is a squad that loves to fight, and with the Renekton to tee us off the draft, that's looking like what Northwood want to do as well. So nothing too different, lots of fighting, and I wouldn't have it any other way for a match point game or a series point game.
Lot of frontline advantage to Northwood once more. Kind of hindered Western last game. We'll see if they can overcome it with resets and raw damage once more as we head to Summoner's Rift. Potentially the final game for Captain Loyal under the Western Mustangs banner, but not if the squad has anything to say about it. The teams are on the Rift. Could we see the first berth of top 8 in CLOL 2024 championships? Only one way to find out.
Krakedon maybe he wants to look for an early ward here, but RBM going to be covering. I'm actually really surprised that Clyde isn't walking up further, trying to maybe get deep vision, utilizing the threat of that hook on the bot lane of UWO to get some early information onto Krakedon's pathing and where he's going to start. But I think what's more curious about Clyde is the fact that we have a TP coming out from the Nautilus. So this might be an early indication of a lane swap here, Slayer.
Yeah, certainly going to be at least a farming Nautilus for sure, as we see the Dornan shield on Clyde's kit here. Lynx's Varus is also on hit. I've seen him go the lethality route a lot of the time, but with the rest of the comp around it, I certainly like it a lot more. You need to be able to burn down the front line because that's going to be the big advantage. We already harped on it. A Nautilus, a Rek'Sai, somewhat bruisery, a Renekton in your face with Dominus is certainly very hard to chunk through. So he wants to go that on-hit leaning. But the pick that certainly is to watch. You don't see a lot. What can Mira do on this LeBlanc? Such a unique champion, especially in the current meta.
For sure, as a little bit of prancing around in the bot lane here, but I want to pay attention to Enthralled this game. Clyde not able to get that Tahm Kench. Enthralled doesn't have the safety net that he's had in the last couple of games where Clyde is able to bail him out. This time around, Senna is a champion that is incredibly squishy, right? Doesn't have any innate mobility. So if Enthralled gets picked out by Loyal, by Lynx, or even by me, if they decide to roam on down toward the bot lane, then that's game for Enthralled, right? There's really no way to get out of there except for Flash, which I'm imagining UWO want to try and burn as early as possible.
Viego certainly is a farm-up champion. You can go for level 3 gank if you want it with your Mist. We do see Krakedon, though, is pathing away from the bot side, so for the time being, unless there's a pretty big headbutt pulverize from Loyal, Enthralled and Clyde got a pretty heavy grasp on this bottom lane.
You can see RBM on the top side of the map just establishing vision around that area. Krakadon won't be seen as he's just going straight for the Grump, but they might see each other here. Yup, they have eyes on each other.
They're both the same level, same amount of camps taken, but with Izo having top pressure first, Krakadon has to give away most of his top side here. He's only willing to be content with the Wolves, and they're just going to take away the Gromp as well. Love this from RVM. This is exactly how you have to play into those scaling farming junglers.
For sure. So it is going to lock Krakadon to go probably back toward the bot side and maybe get something off there, but Reppy going to take a lot of damage.
Okay, now we got Summoner's pop bot side as the Dredge line does land onto Lynx, pops the Ghost. Clyde, though, feeling pretty comfortable. Loyal's getting chucked down pretty low. There's the heal out for a speed up onto Clyde, and Loyal's just seamlessly getting poked down slowly but surely. Dredge line gonna land on to Lynx as well. The W, the root comes across. Can Enthralled grab it? He will. The Senna with first blood as Enthralled continues his rampage on this series.
And Enthralled, there were so many questions about this player in regards to Northwood going into this season. This squad has been so storied and so successful in the past, but they've always, fell short of being able to really make it far in any of the CLOL big brackets. And so people have been asking, is Enthralled this missing piece? And so far, 3 games in a row, he has answered with a decisive yes.
Northwood, top 8 last time in the CLOL Championship. But they've always been looking to break out of the little brother allegations in that North Conference. Talk about the North Conference, it's always Maryville, it's SLU, for good reasons. Northwood got top 8 without Enthralled there. Gotta think adding him, they're looking to shed the little bro allegations in that conference and in the CLOL Championships as a whole. But for now, RBM looking for a gank. They're looking to accelerate this lead. Dr. Calculus, the target, but struggling in this top lane matchup, and once again going to fall early to a great gank from Northwood.
Northwood managed to get another pick, and it doesn't look like UWO have any tools to respond. Krakadon's on this bot side, could maybe look to invade or take the dragon, but there's no real chance of a dive. There's no real chance to punish Enthralled or Clyde, because they're not only pushed against the turret, but Enthralled has flash, right? So it's incredibly difficult to dive this comp, Senna Nautilus. So it is just going to have to be Krakadon taking away this blue buff, and I have to imagine, unless he wants to go for the Grump, that's all he's going to get.
And at least gets the blue buff back when he got his stolen away. Do you want to keep an eye on mid lane as Mira is having a pretty easy time trading with Reppy. LeBlanc is just so hard to punish with those distorts. Been able to give him somewhat of lane prio, but Mira, with the current state that Western are in, is going to have to get out on that rift and try and create more. Something I feel like we haven't seen too much from these mid laners since maybe Game 2's Galio from Reppy.
For sure. It really feels like Mira, was able to be the carry for Western in game number 1, but since then has been significantly stunted in his ability to be that carry champion, to be that carry player that we saw. And unless he gets a big snowball here, I have to imagine game 4 is going to be more of the same. So we got to fight in the bot lane.
Loyal very low is going to go back in. Krakadon is here. A ton of damage down onto Krakadon, though. Does get rooted. Lynx, they're all looking for RBM, but the Dredge line is going to hit Krakadon. Can he find the reset? He can.
Got the
Lynx
reset.
gets it, and that's going to completely swing the fight here for Western. The one goal fight after fight. Can RBM get the resets? This time, the resounding answer is yes, and it's to the tune of 3 kills.
And that's 3 kills, 2 of which go over to Lynx. But really good roam there from Mira to pick off that last one. We were just talking about how it was difficult for Mira to, get that snowball rolling. But it started already. He manages to pick up the Sork shoes. He has 2 stacks on his Dark Seal. It's going to be really tough for Reppy to punish this. So he has to be really careful about his summoner usage. Because the moment, those rocks end up expiring, the moment Mira has the opportunity to dash on this Talia's face, he is going to take it, and that damage is not going to be kind.
Dragon certainly feeling some damage, as at least RBM and Northwood will grab that first Drake. Krakadon is close by, but I think it's far too low. They'll secure that one. So another first Drake here for Northwood, but like you mentioned, we are very so evened out here, at least in the gold. But once more, as we take a look topside, that gank certainly helps, but Izo has been having his way in this matchup, man, for the last couple of games. Up a significant amount of CS behind that kill. It's going to be on Dr. Calculus to make the long trudge back.
It also makes it really difficult for Krakodon to trade objectives, right? We just saw that Dragon taken. The natural response would be to go toward those grubs, try and take maybe one or two or all three of those away. But there's a lot of vision established by Northwood around that top side. They have full eyes on where Krakodon is. You can see the pings coming out. So there really is no chance for an objective handshake this time around. And instead, it's just going to have to be Krakodon looking for any kind of CS that he can at this point in the game.
And that's the name of the game for Viego. But with the Heartbreaker, excuse me, certainly a lot more online. It seems that Krakodon does not care that he was spotted. Is going to be going for these grubs. Pick up the first one with a smite. Question becomes, does RBM want to try and contest them? Has all of his topside camps done. Rolling over here. Has Iso with a pretty significant lane state. There's the World Ender out from Dr. Calculus. So Krakodon's going to get 2 for 1. Now maybe looking to fight it out. Gets a good stun down. Both these junglers have ultimates as we flash bot side. More hijinks finding its way over there. Depth charge going to hit Lynx and Loyal. But Enthralled is able to get back out. Clyde maybe on the wrong side of the rift, but he's going to be able to run his way out. Nobody dying. And looks like we're handshaking those grubs at the end of the day.
RBM managing to pick up the last one as well. So 2 going the way of UWO and Krakodon. Meanwhile, Northwood, they managed to pick up 1 just to make it a little bit more of a time investment for Western to go for those second spawns to get the Void Might access. But yeah, like you said, Slayer, nobody dying. Everyone just handshaking objectives, handshaking health bars as well. And the game returning to a relative normal.
With the big sore thumb there out if you're Northwood. Lynx, like you mentioned, massive in game 1. Maybe lost the duel to Enthrall the last couple of games. Steals his champion 2-0-1 on this Varus. Already has a lot of components of that Blade of the Rune King done. And if he can burn through, if he gets the early damage enough to burn through this front line, it's going to open the floodgates for those Mustangs.
For sure. It definitely feels like Lynx is going to be the caveat to Western's success here in this game number 4. If they want to make it to game number 5, they have to put pressure to Lynx and just make sure that this Varus is as comfortable as possible. Because Lynx, he knows how to play Varus. He is a mechanical mastermind in and of himself, as RBM shows off some mechanics by canceling Loyal's combo.
Still loses his Gromp. And now they're setting up camp in this red side jungle. But Clyde looking to
standing still.
Disrupt it. Mira, though, this is what we want to see from the LeBlanc, right? Is just be a menace on these jungles. Sit in brushes, distort over, poke people down, push them off these objectives, and it's allowing Krakodon to amass a bit of a CS lead in the jungle here with stolen camps.
Definitely canceling out the CS lead that is still grappling Western on the top lane here, as Iso still around 20 CS up against Dr. Calculus, and really doesn't feel like Dr. Calculus, you were hyping this up, I believe in Game 3's draft, where Dr. Calculus, he had a good Renekton, but so far it has been stunted really heavily here in game number 4. It just feels like Iso is always in command of this lane. If Dr. Calculus chooses to go for a fight, Iso is right there, completed Eclipse in hand.
Yeah.
And it just limits the opportunities here in this top lane.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help at all. Dr. Calculus has had to kind of stall out his build for anti-heal, knowing this matchup is very rough. There's a good stun first on to this LeBlanc from Reppy, but I don't know if there's too much kill threat in these lanes, especially unless there's a pretty good angle for Reppy to go in.
Doesn't feel like any lane is really looking for kills, more so just to scale up, and I feel like that is exemplified in the bot lane. Enthralled wanting to, get as many souls as possible. Lynx wanting to get to that 3-item mark. Both squads have scaling in their own right. Is Mira forced to flash. The Prey Seeker doesn't land.
Yeah, Void Rush is up there if RBM wants to chase, but LeBlanc isn't usually going to be the target. The ultimate trade in the bot side, Enthralled is going to get stunned up. Lynx certainly has a lot of damage, and there is the Heartbreaker to reset Krakodon. Teleport in here for Iso, though the other big carry showing up, and it feels like Lynx is as good as dead, just trying to run out of it, but Clyde won't let him. Shutdown comes across.
Calculus.
There's the trade onto Krakodon. Iso is just so massive as that frontline carry with the Eclipse, and it's going to allow Northwood to scathe out with a skirmish win.
Izo cosplaying the lore-accurate Renekton there. Such a menace in that team fight. And that skirmish win is going to net them their second dragon of the game. Northwood have been so good at controlling these neutrals throughout the series and just putting pressure on Western as the time goes on.
Like you mentioned, third game in a row, the first two Drakes have gone the way of the Timberwolves. This time they get a Cloud Soul, and Thrall has to be careful. We talked about how squishy that set is. Gets a great root, though, on Amira. He's actually able to come out unscathed in that trade, but that might be a bit of foreshadowing to what Mira's goal is going to be every single fight in and out, deleting Enthralled.
For sure. He is certainly going to be on Enthralled assassination duty, but it's looking like Western are going to be on Grub extermination duty at the same time, as they are going to pick up all three of them, get 5 in their pocket. So Might's available for UWO now, but they have not managed to take a single plate in this game. I mean, you look at the lanes, the plates are about to drop in 10 seconds, but they have not gotten a lot of damage on any of these turrets. So it's going to be up to them to look for a pick, look for a team fight, so they can start damaging those structures and really making use of those mites.
It's a double-edged sword, right? With mites and plates falling down, is like you lose the gold that you can get from the plates, but then at the same time, the flip side is now with the mites, you might be able to get a turret fully down that you wouldn't have without them before.
For sure. As both teams kind of locked in around this mid lane, the Herald is up and available. Izo, crucially, does have the Dominus up and is still plenty strong. Some key members of Northwood have dinged one item. But meanwhile, I mean, you look at Western, and they have an item on Mira, they have an item on Lynx, and they're looking for a fight, potentially.
Yeah, but it might get Lynx popped off in the background as RBM's going to go for the Void Rush and eviscerates Lynx. Will be traded out, but Krakendon was caught on the front line. Huge seismic shove from Reppy. He's going to get Loyal as well. Time and time again, it's Western aggressing and Northwood punishing.
Northwood managing to get a team fight win again. They find 3. And they only have 1 grub, but that looks like it might be enough to destroy this tier 1 mid. And this would be a huge take for Northwood this early on. 15 minutes to get this mid tier 1 down. Will unlock so much more of the map for them to play with, and just allows them to push up further and, you know, scale up in these side lanes. And that's exactly what you want to see for players like Enthralled on the Senna, the ability to get more souls, to get more stacks without the threat of potentially being collapsed on.
Speaking of it, if our lovely observer could hover over Enthralled, I'd like to get a first stack check on this fasting Senna, where Enthralled is at, as Krakendon and the Western, they should be uncontested on this Herald. I know the mark with Senna before her soul nerfs was you want about 20 every 5 minutes.
Yes.
So Enthralled 55 at 16, a little bit behind pace, but still in a good spot.
A little bit behind, but I still think that, you know, the way this game is going certainly doesn't punish Enthralled for being behind. This is definitely the most tame match I feel like we've seen in this series so far. Usually at around 16 minutes, teams are team fighting around the dragon, preparing to team fight and just take Barons on spawn. So this is certainly the calmest we've seen this series so far, and I think Enthralled is happy for it to be calm.
Oh, but Krakendon's looking to pick off Enthralled. That squishy Senna like you talked about. That's just a couple of, that's 1 Kraken Slayer proc. A double auto for Krakendon, and Enthralled is at half HP. Gotta be perfect on positioning with this Senna, but now they're going to use that leverage to push Rift Herald into the mid-turn. It is going to crash, but it's going to catch Reppy on the other side of his own wall.
Oh, Reppy!
One's got to flash over, but Reppy just got deleted. Mira finds the first pick, teleports galore. Izo, the big bag Kruk, has shown up, but that mid-turn is down. And you can see Mira laying down the poke. They're looking to pick off on to Clyde. Burn him down. Izo goes in. Both supports get deleted in an instant. Izo having to flash down, but Krakendon, soul secure, gets the depth charge, but Enthralled's Dawning Shadow shuts him out. It's going to keep the fight even between these two scaling squads.
Northwood, they manage to get some back, but they lose 2 at the same time. Forced to reset here. Meanwhile, Mira is staying on the map, so we'll be able to push this wave in, and that unlocks Western's ability to establish vision around that Dragon Pit to try and deny away the soul point that Northwood have set themselves up to get. And yeah, that wave pushing in. Now all the members of UWO have respawned. Same goes for Northwood. All of their members have respawned, but they're walking in completely blind.
Oh, and Izo, he doesn't have Dominus. You can see how much damage Mira's doing, and that piercing arrow nearly gets it done for Lynx. That's the big frontline carry, though, for Northwood. Now out of it, doesn't have teleport. Gotta think you just have to sack this Drake now.
For sure. Western, though, they don't have any ultimates up. Same goes for Northwood, so they don't want to fight. They don't have really any advantage to press that can allow them to walk up here. But they are all hovering toward that top side, maybe looking to get this top tier 1 and just try and knock down some more of these neutrals, look for a trade wherever they can find one. But Mira, you might want to be careful.
Yeah, Mira. Oh, no idea what is waiting for him over the walls. Is going to make Clyde and RBM have to readjust some. They now have 4 members. Got to commit everybody to try and catch a LeBlanc. Distort back towards the turrets. But RBM and Thrall are going to try and keep Mira here. But they're actually not willing to go for the dive here as the rest of Western is shown back up.
Yeah, Western managed to make their way back up, and I was about to say Mira will have his reinforcements shortly, so that dissuades the dive, and all in all, it is just a dragon for nothing at the end of the day.
The big thing to watch for here, Quacks, is who can grab these side lane outer tier 1 turrets, because it's really stunting how much vision you can get into the opposing enemy jungler for both sides. The fact that both tier 1s and bot and top are up, and it makes it so much more risky to go for pick plays on the side lanes, and it's going to make Baron takes just such a hassle for either squad until they can get those turrets.
For sure. And I mean, speaking of Baron, it feels like both squads have a decent amount of damage they can deal to the Baron, but from what we've seen in the last games, you know, this consistent objective damage, this is going to take a little bit longer for both teams, I think, in game number 4. So they have to be a little bit more sure that they can secure this objective before going for it, because I think the time it's going to take them is going to be slower, at least in comparison to what we've seen in the last games.
I certainly agree, especially for Northwood. I mean, any Senna comp, you are not burning Barons fast. Yeah. I do think with Viego and an on-hit Vars, the Western can burn it a lot quicker, but like you mentioned, it's not a game where somebody can just take the Baron inside 15 seconds, depending on the time.
And that just makes it so that the emphasis on establishing Baron around this area is so much more important. As Mira, well, we've all fallen for that, where someone places it right on the health bar or right on the hitbox of Baron, and we end up hitting the big purple worm instead. So I feel his pain on that to like a spiritual level.
Yeah, especially with this Season 14 Baron. Angering it is...
he's a lot more chunky.
Yep. Without a doubt.
Baron put on a little bit more weight. Down. Absolutely. But both teams, crucially, are on the top side of the map. Meanwhile, the top laners themselves are just on the bot side, and I really don't think we're going to see anything too crazy from either team. They're just trying to win this sort of no man's land war of attrition to establish vision. And it certainly helps that the tremor sense from RBM is detecting any cheesy plays that UWO might attempt to make.
Yeah, it feels like one dredge line, one stun, one chains of corruption from any of these guys can really kick off this game. But like you mentioned, nobody's at soul point for Dragon, so there's not too much pressure to play for that. All these tier 1s up in the side lanes make it hard for either team to play for Baron. You can tell Northwood, they want to knock down this top tier 1 to get waves pushing in their favor.
I love the positioning here from RBM. He's able to detect so many members of Western and just make it so they don't really have any surprises in store for them, right? This tremor sense really coming in clutch when it comes to detecting players like Mira, who are, again, going to try and look for as much pressure and assassination onto Enthralled as possible. It's going to be up to RBM and the Rex side to really protect his backline from any kind of those flanks going into these team fights that should be occurring in the next couple of minutes, given that a dragon will be spawning in about a minute's time.
Yeah, and I'm curious which team's really going to position themselves more towards that dragon with the fact that no team is on Cloud's sole point. But I like that play from Northwood a lot, pressuring topside, because in the 1v1, right now Izo still a lot stronger than Dr. Calculus, but not strong enough to avoid the reset back there from Mira, as they're going to try and wrap Izo here. Krakodon won't land the stun, and a good slice of dice from Izo will get him out.
Some fancy feet from the Croc. As, yeah, they don't manage to get Izo. Izo still has teleport, still has the Dominus available, and the flash, so everything's up for the big bad Croc going into this team fight as both teams positioning around this mid lane.
Okay. Dredge line won't land for Clyde. Like you mentioned, item advantage to Izo at 2 items. On the other side, though, Mira at 2 items over Reppy. Same thing for
Lynx as well.
Yeah, I was going to say farming Varus has the item advantages, so clear fight lines for both these teams. It seems like both of these squads want to fight for this next dragon.
For sure, and it feels like RBM is playing Battleship at this point with all of the red dots that are constantly popping up for him as he is in his Tremor Sense mode. He's in his burrowed form. But they're going to start up the dragon. They are going to start hitting it, and it's going to be up to UWO to walk into this position blind, but this is a dangerous game to be playing.
Look out for a potential flank coming across. It's a big head of pulverize for Loyal. Dr. Calculus, the World Ender, is going forward, can't find anybody. RBM picks up the dragon first here, and now Izo's the target, has to flash out with the Dominus, but Mira's damage is so much, and there's the reset Krakodon needed. Now jumping forward, onto Thrall. Krakodon looking to do it all, gets a second. Heartbreaker's in for a third. Clyde's going to be the next target with Dr. Calculus. It's all on the Viego possession for Western. They get Izo, and they might have just grappled hold of this elimination game 4.
And Krakodon cracks the skulls of Northwood. They managed to find for Reppy the lone survivor. But with all those picks, with all those kills, Krakodon and co are just going to make their way straight over to the Baron. The pings are coming through from Northwood, but it's just Reppy, and all he is going to be able to do is watch.
The Baron started up. RBM back up. Izo has teleported. Thrall is running in. I don't think Northwood are going to let this go quietly in the night, but I also think they're going to be a bit too late. The Weavers, while Reppy is in the pit with all of Western, still alive, can't get the steal, and falls. The Genji Baron buff goes to Western Mustangs, and they're going to pick up a kill as a consolation prize.
The Western Mustangs, we were getting worried about them in this game. They were down multiple dragons. They were down a lot of pressure. But when the chips were down, their backs were against the wall. They managed to come up clutch. They get multiple kills. They get the Baron. And they're looking to take us to a game 5 here, Slayer.
Oh boy. I can feel the nerves already as Izo might be the victim of a silent pressure. Just look how much damage Mira, this AP LeBlanc, does in the face of Izo. And Dr. Calculus, he's the one that sees red. He wants revenge on Izo, who's been bullying him for what feels like 2 whole games. And how sweet is that, picking up the kill?
Dr. Calculus manages to pick another one up. And yeah, like you talked about, Mira on this LeBlanc has been performing really, really admirably. Has 2 items acquired, almost going to that third. I would imagine that is going to be a Crypt Bloom, so that AoE heal going to help out a lot for players like Lynx who don't have that innate sustain, built into their abilities to be able to continue fighting those extended trades. And that is also good for champions like Viego, right, who want those resets. Getting that heal off could be really big for them.
Hey, there's that TP on the Nautilus. What you know about Clyde's split push? Nautilus gets a turret and is now back, baby, to help out Enthralled. I like it. Proactive.
For sure. As Western don't really have a wave to work with, so they're just going to leave that one. No objective spawning for quite a long time here, so nothing to really fight for. It's really just going to be a matter of getting turrets, getting priority, and just establishing visions around the map so you can look for a pick. And I have to think that Northwood, despite the fact that they lost that most recent fight, they are still up in Dragons by 2. They still have a really good pick comp. If they can grab Krakodon, if they can grab Mira while they're rotating to catch waves or rotating to establish vision, then they can really hammer home with the amount of cross-map play that they have. 3 TPs along with the Weaver's Wall. they can just put pressure on so many corners of the map.
Haven't gotten a lot with this Baron buff yet. I believe, I don't know, I think they might have gotten top tier 1 with it. That's it. They're looking to go bot side for the tier 2. They catch Clyde waiting in the bush. The dredge line hits the wall, has no way out, but might just fight through as Kraken of all people's far too low, but Mira's damage sinks through first. Clyde gonna fall. Low health bars for the Western Mustangs is gonna force them to reset though.
And the health bars are also just gonna, dissuade them from going further, like you said, Slayer. They're gonna take their Baron empowered recalls and dip out of there. But real quickly, I want to get a look at Enthralled's stacks here. We are nearly 30 minutes into the game. This Senna has to be, at the very least, close to 100. I would imagine they're probably over 100 at this point. And that is going to provide so much more safety for Enthralled to, poke down these champions that UWO have drafted. But it's going to be a matter of protecting Enthralled, because so many times we've seen a couple of hits on the Senna ding it to around half HP. So it's a matter of, can they protect the Senna in time for it to deal the damage it needs to on those key members of Western.
Enthralled does have that LDR done, opting for that second with an Alistar and an Aatrox running likely directly for Enthralled. As they're looking for a pick here on a Dr. Calculus. Good World Ender, though. Gives them enough of speed up, and it's just an ult check. But both those ultimates going to be down as this Drake spawns.
I feel like that is that kind of gives the vibes of Sion yelling cowards when he ults away. As the world, an ultimate named the World Ender gets popped as he runs away. As the dragon is going to be started up, is going to reset, and I don't know if either of these teams are brave enough to step into that pit. That could be a compromising position to be in, especially with the pick tools that both these teams have, but they're trying to walk up.
Weaver's wall now down, another key ultimate, but Loyal's gonna go forward, headbutt flash, pulverize again, but they stuck Kraken on, they knock him up. If they kill the Viego before reset, that's massive. Enthralled's gonna be able to get it. They trade their support out as Lynx has gone untouched in the fight, and Loyal is still looking for more pester. Flashback from RBM, wants the carry, goes into the void dive, goes all the way for Lynx, but can't find it. It's the Dawning Shadow that gets it, wipes out Western in one swift blow. Dr. Calculus, the only one up, and Northwood are certainly not done in this game 4.
Northwood, they win out the fight, and their reward will be the soul. We've talked a little bit about the Cloud Soul this series, you and I, Slayer, but a soul is that, just that. So it's going to be a massive advantage for Northwood going into this game. It's going to help out Enthralled and Reppy are the big ones that come to mind. Just being able to roam around the map quicker, along with RBM, right? So this is a good soul for this squad to have. And they're looking to take this game back for themselves, looking to take control back after Western threw them for a loop.
120 souls I saw there for Enthralled at 30 minutes, so is actually right on pace for this fasting Senna in a great spot like you talked about. And you can see with these fight lines what is so integral to both of these teams, right? It's keeping Enthralled safe for Northwood. Western, it feels like with how fed Kraken is, they need that reset to really win these fights. I also got to shout out the fact Dr. Calculus feels like he's a lot more back in this game now. Up to 3 items on this Aatrox, and there's going to be a point where Aatrox is stronger than this Renekton. That's a key flash off Kraken. He's got to Heartbreaker over the wall. There's so many key abilities down for the Western jungler with Baron up.
And that's straight to Baron. Izo does take a lot of damage. That one chain chunked out Izo, so Mira definitely going to be the one I'm going to keep my eyes on for this Baron fight, because it looks like Western, they don't want to give this up despite no flash. They are looking to take this one as Mira forced to flash.
Yeah, and Clyde was waiting for it. I like the respect here, though, from Northwood. They know they can't just take the Baron 5v5. They can if RBM gets picked off. It's Dr. Calculus that sets up the pick for Mira. And now this complexity of the pit has changed vastly. No jungler available for Northwood. They can't take this Baron. They can't do anything but watch.
Izo has re-entered the pit. He was split from his team for a little bit.
Oh, and now they're just going to try and fight it out. Loyal is the target. Dr. Calculus jumping onto Reppy of all targets. Just does not have the World Ender. Getting poked out. The Blast Code keeps him safe. But keep an eye on Enthralled. The range is really starting to hurt onto the Western Mustangs. And it is enough to push them off the Baron and stall out for RBM.
And sure, RBM, he's coming up in around 10 seconds here. It will take him time to re-enter the fight, but he has the Cloud Soul. He is incredibly fast. And I don't know if Dr. Calculus can run fast enough to avoid the Timberwolves.
Oh, the Cloud Soul paying dividends. Dominus gets the shutdown. Dr. Calculus down. Man advantage back over to Northwood, looking for the knockout blow. RBM rushing to the pit. And I got to think that the Mustangs have to give this Genji Baron.
For sure, Krakedon, no flash, just got the Heartbreaker back available, so there really isn't any chance for a steal. Not only that, but they don't have a lot of vision established in this area, so that is just going to be a free Gen G Baron buff here for Northwood. And all in all, they played that disengage masterfully.
I mean, they were willing to flank 4v5 and stall out the Baron. The guts on that call alone is huge. And now, like you mentioned, Genji Baron buff is available to them. Got all tier 2s up if they really want to try and get back in this gold lead that they could potentially see themselves in front of, depending on how many structures can they get. But any game this far down, Quacks, the only thing I'm watching is that Elder Dragon timer.
For sure. Elder Dragon going to be up in around 2.5 minutes. And I got to think that with Northwood, they have the Baron buff available. They're just going to try and push down these side lanes as much as possible. They're not even sending anyone to respond to Mira's split pushing here on the top lane because they want to establish pressure on this bot side instead. But Mira does have TP and is spotted out by Northwood now, is on vision. So this could potentially be the Timberwolves' time to look for a pick, look for any kind of man advantage to continue pressing this Baron buff with.
Well, trade tier 2 for tier 2, and if you're the team without Baron, you like that. And look at the guts on Mira. Not going to stop the push. Northwood either have to commit all out for the base or send one back. But it looks like they're willing to trade. Already get their inhibitor turret traded back for by Mira. Bot side inhibitor down. The key thing is Mira, without Baron and without being an AD champion, doesn't have enough to trade inhibitor.
Is going to have to recall. Does manage to open up the base of Northwood, though, so a big advantage coming for them if they manage to win this fight, but they're going to have to walk through Shadow and Fire in order to do so. So much vision has been established by Northwood that it's going to make Western just... They have to be incredibly careful walking up to this pit because at any point in time, there could be someone around the corner. Luckily, there is no one around the corner. All the members of Northwood did respawn back to their base, so it does open up a little bit of an opportunity for them to establish vision and just try to get any kind of advantage they can around this Elder.
Talking with Lynx about this Western Mustang squad, you got the veterancy of the bottom lane, but he really talked about how much they believe in the talent across their top side. In this game, it really feels like a lot of that is on Mira, Krakedon, and Dr. Calculus. Especially Mira, 6-1-6 on this LeBlanc, just got a 4th item Zhonya's. Needs to be able to poke out Northwood in these fights for Western to have a chance to keep their season alive.
And Mira already trying to get some poke, but look at how fast RBM is around this spot of the map, around this sort of cyclone that the Cloud Dragon generates when it spawns. Is RBM maybe looking to join the fight? Loyal, potentially caught.
Loyal. That's Unbreakable Will down. Response is Dawning Shadow. It's hard to get through the Alistar with that ult up, but that gives them command over the Elder Drake. And if you're Western, you just can't give this up, but a pick onto Loyal. He's dead. Reppy finds the avenue, and Western are now in a 4v5. Can they even step up for this Elder?
Western, they don't have any real premier front line.
Lynx has to burn the flash. Clyde nearly picks him off. They can't even get in the river. The dredge line is going to land onto Mira. It goes golden. Dodges the seismic shove, but now Clyde very low. Dr. Calculus going forward, but Krakedon is getting hounded by Izo, and Thrall picks off Mira. Is this the final fight? Izo's going crazy on the backline. Deletes Lynx. See you later, Krakedon. Dr. Calculus can't even get out for the might of Reppy. It's an ace. It's a shutdown, a series win. Northwood, they may be the little bro in the North Conference, but they're going top 8 for back-to-back years.
Northwood, they have made their way through trials and tribulations, underestimated at every turn, but today, they're the ones that come up big, and they will win this series 3-1.
I don't want to hear a word from those Northwood are frauds allegations.
Absolutely
They're the first to grab top 8. Man, what a series. I mean, what a turnaround just from game one. I mean, this looked all Western to start, Quacks, but they just rip off 3 in a row.
For sure. And you know what that, I mean, I was feeling really confident after game one, after Western managed to win that first game, because I was saying, hey, I'm the only one that predicted Western, but I'm the only one that's wrong. So feels bad for me on my end, but feels good for Northwood University, as they, like you said, Slayer, first ones to lock top 8. And I think it's very comfortable to say that Enthralled was certainly the missing piece to the puzzle of this squad, because he has been unlocked in this series. And if the series is any indication, we have a lot to look forward to from this bot lane.
Super well said there, Quacks. We'll have a lot more thoughts on the series to close things out. But for now, we're going to go to a quick break as we set up an interview talking with one of the members of the victorious Northwood Timberwolves squad as they grab top 8 for the second CLOL Championship tournament in a row. victorious Northwood Timberwolves. Really big mean RBM. Just right off rip, my man, how we feeling? How are the vibes after that pretty complete end of the series?
It's good. A little bit of relief, but we expected to win, so yeah.
Well, it certainly showed the confidence in this series. You knew what I was going to ask. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit before we got on air here. Going back to that, that Kindred game. You obviously you get that pick, absolutely destroy on it. What was going through your head when you got the lock in, and how did the game feel for you? Just getting to play such a pivotal champion in your arsenal.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of our scrims people usually just ban it, so I don't get to practice it a ton. But I was like, I told my teammates, like, if it's open in any game at all, just pick it into anything, I'll win. But I figured, like, I will probably only ever get one game on it, and then when I play my one game, it's like banned for the rest of the tournament. So that was probably the last time I'll get to play it for the rest of the tournament. But it's like we had to break glass in case of emergency. We broke it because we lost game one, and then that'll be my last Kindred game.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with you there. I would never give you Kindred going forward in this series. But I want to talk about, this team you guys put together. Because obviously you brought in Enthralled, but you have that enigma of Izo in the top lane, being able to play those tanks. Like, how pivotal was it to have that guy pick Tank Maokai into, like, Yone, win the Renekton and Aatrox matchup, just absorb all that pressure? What did that do for the rest of your games, being able to have that rock in the top lane?
Yeah, I mean, my top laner is blind picking tank and solo killing his opponent with R5. It's usually a good sign that the game's going to go well. Obviously, Izo doesn't get enough credit because, he plays tanks and whatever. He's typically weak side and whatnot, but I'm glad he got to showcase the Renekton. Izo's been playing out of his mind the whole tournament, so I'm really proud of him. He's definitely been a key part of our team forever because, he's the biggest vibes guy. He's the nicest guy ever. Like, he'll calm us down if we're getting mad or anything like that. So he's a key part of the team for sure.
Standard rock chat, Giga chat at the top lane. Love to hear that that's Izo's vibe. But I want to look a little bit more holistically back on, like, the last couple of weeks for you guys. Obviously, you play in that North Conference with, other big names like Slew, Maryville. You come out in third place in that close series against ISU. Obviously, the goal, I'm sure, for you guys is to go as far as you can, win this whole thing if you can. But what does it mean, the fact that you're able to get top 8 for a second year and potentially could be facing, another Maryville, another Slew further in this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely came in with the expectation of at least 8th, especially when I saw my bracket. I figured 8th was really easy. I didn't play, like, USC and Western are both, like, fine teams, but I knew whichever one of them win, it didn't matter. Converse actually put up a really good fight. Devin is really, really good. Hope won their AD. But I definitely knew at least, like, going into it at least 8th, even though we looked really, really bad against ISU, because we did look really bad. We tried a lot of stuff we had never practiced. Like, the first game we lane swapped, and that was our first lane swap ever. We had never done it in scrims or anything, so we were really dizzy in that series for sure. We looked terrible, so I understood why people thought we sucked. Like, we had a really, really bad showing. I think, teams like Slew, Maryville, like, those are obviously tournament favorites. Like, I don't think anyone's beating them unless they beat themselves. So it's like, being in conference with those teams sucks, but it's like, we knew we'd get 3rd no matter what. We knew we'd get 8th, top 8. Like, from this point on, it's like, okay, well, now we just have to defy everyone's expectations and, like, maybe even our own, and just be like, yeah, let's see really how far we can go. I think Ole Miss will be fun to play against. I love bantering with Shogo, because I think Shogo is really, really, really good, and I think the rest of his teammates get to sit back and enjoy the ride. So, it'll be a lot of fun when we get to play them. I'll be balling the whole game, no matter what. The prep is there. You're not laning 2v2. You'll lane 3v3, and you better hope your jungler performs, because I'm going to be there, I promise.
All right, I love it. Sending a message out to Ole Miss there. Don't get no Kindred. Don't give it RBM.
Yeah, and maybe OC beats you guys. That'd be pretty cool with me. I'd be pretty happy with Oklahoma Christian winning. That'd be nice. But
yeah, I get it nonetheless. Well, RBM, it's been a pleasure getting to talk to you. I'm excited to see where you guys in Northwood go in the future. Before we get out of here, man, I want to give you the stage really quickly. Got any shout outs for the boys awaiting you in the call? Any friends or family?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to everyone. This is my last year. It's it's been a lot of fun. I finished my master's degree in December, so this will be my last year at CLOL. I just want to thank everybody. I've had so many friends and fans the whole time. Sorry. But people have been so supportive of me and stuff. So thank you to everybody. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you to Riot and always putting on the event. I wouldn't have made it through college probably without them. And now, I get to graduate with a master's degree. I have a job, I have a career. Things are really great. So thank you to all of them, and thank you to all my teammates for believing in me and trusting me to perform despite all the stuff going on. So thank you.
Well, RBM, I can't speak for everybody, but you did all your friends and family and your school so very proud. So congratulations once more on your top 8 finish. We'll hopefully be seeing you more next week, but for now, we'll say sayonara to RBM. We'll bring back in Quacks here so we can break down this series. Quacks, welcome back, my friend. Such a passionate speech there, finish from RBM. It's so nice to hear that making that top 8 in his Last Dance journey.
Absolutely. And not only that, but the impact that I feel like CLOL has had on a lot of the players, being able to get in further to their careers, right? Not just in League, but also just in life. So really, really good interview there from RBM. I certainly felt a connection there myself, as I am also in college. So yeah, a beautiful interview there, and followed by a beautiful series as well, right? One that I think was incredibly fun to watch, incredibly fun to cast. And even though it was Western at the end of the day, they were the ones that got knocked out. They should be incredibly proud of themselves. And I think it was a beautiful showing from everyone involved.
Yeah, it certainly is sad to see, this is the end for Loyal with the Western Mustangs. Did not go out without a fight. We'll see exactly what one of those premier, Canadian collegiate rosters decides to retool. Let's get, though, one more look at the bracket as it is updated in our current standings. I would direct your attention once more to the bottom right here. You heard RBM talking about it. He's expecting an Ole Miss versus Northwood about there in the bottom right. But boy, do we have so many more amazing games coming up here, Quacks, to look forward to just in the round of 16.
For sure. And one that is worth noting is going to be that MU and UCI will be starting at the top of the hour. So that is going to be our next matchup covered. You can see it just below the matchup we just covered, just below Northwood versus Western Legends. And yeah, honestly, excited to watch that series as well. I know that Maryville University are probably the heavy favorites going into it, but it's exciting nonetheless.
Exciting nonetheless, and if you want a third matchup, you saw it there at the bottom left there, running the Rift. We'll be showing off CU Boulder versus Fisher Esports. But at least now, for myself and Quacks, I want to make sure to shout out one more time. You can kind of see the banner running at the top. These are all of the amazing people that have donated to the GoFundMe that you see below if you want to support Grapes and Hawk for this awesome event that they're putting together. It's you guys at home are the reason why myself and Quacks are even up here in the first place. Also, obviously, a huge shout out to Gen G and Ole Miss for being big-time sponsors here. But Quacks, I know this isn't the last we're going to see of you of the weekend. It's going to be the last one of me with you, though, for now, it seems. What are your final thoughts, maybe, before we throw this thing out?
I mean, just overall, again, I think it's a beautiful series. I thank you to everyone who donated. Thank you to Gen G and Ole Miss for, again, like you said, Slayer, making this one possible. You said we wouldn't be here without them, and it's definitely true. So thank you to everyone for making this a reality. Thank you for supporting CLOL, and we'll see you at the top of the hour for UCI versus MU. Don't go anywhere.